Now, the profiles have already been noted in your songs, at least, and in your public expression. You're sort of a commentary on race as one of your song issues, and you made a comment there about black youth responding to a Stevie Wonder song. What do you make of the way, quote unquote, like black music has progressed? And in a sense, you're right that, you know, as far as the popular commercial representation of what is defined as black music now is very singular. It's pretty much just rap and like electronic R&B and hip hop as far as what's in the mainstream.
Indeed it is.
Where do you find your place in that, and what do you think about your place in that?
You know, I don't know if there is a place in that for me. I mean, I tell people I'm big in the music business like a barnacle's big in shipping. You know, I'm like, I'm not really anybody in this business. I'm known in the folk circles. You know, I'm a sort of minor player in the folk circles, and people know me that way. But, you know, far be it from me to call those that haven't embraced what I do as racist. I'm not going to do that. And you know, there's part of me that I just think that people, I think people like what they like, and they cling to that which is familiar. There's a movement afoot nowadays. There's a lot of players between the ages of 30 and 60 years old. There's a handful of black acoustic guys that are doing a great job with the blues. Guys like Otis Taylor and oh gosh, I'm stuck for names. What's his name? Guy Davis, guy's a friend of mine. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name. And these guys have taken on the mantle of pushing the blues, you know, the acoustic blues, and doing it as black men. And it's like, yay, you know, Kev Mo and these guys, they're. But I think in a lot of ways, I think when a black man picks up an acoustic guitar, I think that's expected in its own way. I think that's, you know, when a black man picks up an acoustic guitar and does James Taylor or goes to some other more pop acoustic genre, it's like people don't know what to make of that, you know. So often I get, oh, dude, Tracy Chapman. And I just sag. I go like, you know, gosh, is that, you know, I was playing this before Tracy was. What, is that the best you can do?
And what about Ben Harper? There's a black, I mean, he's biracial. You know, his mother was white.
Right.
But he's had a lot of success, at least maybe not so much in the mainstream as other artists have, but at least in the college radio circuit and like independent circuit.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's had a lot of success, and like bands like the Roots, they've had a lot of success.
That's
with
right. Amos Lee.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a lot of these guys, I think, they're cutting this swath, you know, that's very cool. I don't know where I put myself in that pantheon. I think those guys are, you know, probably, you know, maybe people think that they're better than I am. That's cool. You know, I think Amos Lee is a tremendous singer. Tremendous singer. I think Ben Harper is a great player and singer. I mean, you know, when I was coming up trying to do my thing, and he was already cutting it at college radio with Mama's Got a Girlfriend. It was like, oh my God, you know, he was killing it with that. And every once in a while I'd get, you know, a note from somebody said, to me, because I was starting to grow my hair long, oh, we love that song you did, Mama's Got a Girlfriend. I was like, you know, thanks, but that's not me. That's Ben Harper, and he's much more famous than I am.
Do you think that black youth culture has rejected, because if you follow blues and folk music back, it starts with black people. It doesn't start with white people in America. I mean, you know, I go as far back as the 20s and like the early or late 10s, just because my historical knowledge is not as in depth, I'm sure, as yours.
Well, I mean, you might do better than I, depending on what
I mean,
genre
you go back to Son House, you go back to Robert Johnson, you go back to Mississippi John Hurt, you go back to Lead Belly, you know, and then pretty much the lone white guy in that group is Woody Guthrie, but everyone around him is they're all black guys.
That's right.
You know, the roots of American music are in black culture. They're not in white culture. Now the roots of commercialization, are in white culture, from what I can see.
Right.
I've always had this kind of thought that, do you think black youth culture of today rejects old folk and blues music as a rejection of white co-opting of that music?
I think the black culture as a whole has rejected various parts of certain types of music because of the fact that it's been co-opted. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, Dizzy and Miles and Monk and those guys practiced a thing called Crow Jim, which was Jim Crow turned on its ear. They excluded white guys from playing bebop as long as they could, because this was a black voice. This was something that couldn't get turned around by Paul Whiteman and Benny Goodman and the Dorseys and all. Which would, the Dorseys and Goodman were cool, particularly Goodman. Benny Goodman was finally starting to hire black guys, and angry that others weren't. With Charlie Christian and Lionel Hampton and working with guys like that. But Paul Whiteman, known as the father of modern jazz. I mean, come on. Because, I'll never forget reading in a book somewhere. It said, it's a sore spot with many purists that the first group to record jazz was a white group. And I was like, dude, yeah. Because those were the first people after the recording bans were lifted that had any money or anything to do anything. Yeah, of course it was a white group that first recorded jazz. Everybody was playing it. But if you listen to, you listen to the jazz at the time, you listen to Paul Whiteman, and you listen to Coleman Hawkins or Sidney Bechet, there's no comparison to the sense of swing that's going on there with Louis Armstrong. And it's not because somebody was black that they were swinging. It's not some sort of genetic thing going on. It's just that culturally, those people were swinging. Now, you got to kind of, you got to go like, well, you think of people like Django Reinhardt and a lot of the people, the gypsy people. When you have, I think when you have a group of people that have been hammered on and downtrodden, they're going to come up with incredible music, and that's where Django and Stefan Grappelli and those people, that whole folk swing jazz thing that came over from Europe. Man, that stuff was swinging. And the black players on this side, people like Duke Ellington, knew it. He had Django on the bill a few times. So, Duke wasn't stupid, man. He knew good players when he won it. So, the reason why I'm only going off on that is because, through time, jazz got co-opted. Folk got co-opted. Blues got co-opted. R&B got co-opted. Not so much co-opted because black people were finally getting a certain amount of parity in the 60s and 70s. So when Average White Band came out, and you didn't know that they were a white band until you picked up the album and you saw all these white guys on the back, and our jaws dropped open as a little black kid in Philadelphia looking at that. That was a very cool thing, man. And then there's Joe Messina, the guitarist from the Funk Brothers from Motown. He was an Italian cat, but he was in the fold. He was the guy. He was the guy they used. So there's always been great white players in it, but there comes a time where often people start to think. I think the co-opted thing comes from when people think that the music was always mixed and always white and black, and a lot of times it's because the capitalization of the music was done by the people in power at the time.